Alright everyone, welcome to Demise's Newbie Corner. Today we're going to be talking about building a character. This is going to be a pretty interesting video for those of you guys that are kind of new to the game, kind of starting off, because I noticed that this is another one of those trends where, you see someone, like, it's very normal, like a new player comes in, they're like, hey, I have this problem with my character, and then you go into their character sheet and you're just like, oh dear god, someone kill this character because it hurts, man. You've gone wrong so many ways that the only way to fix your character is to kill him and start him again. So we're going to talk about the basics, the very basics of building a character, and hopefully that'll get people, making a little bit better attempts at doing a morgue, like leaving a pretty corpse, if you will, or at least so that when I look at it, I'm like, why do you have 15 in poison magic? Please don't. All right, so talking about building a character. All right, whew. Alright, so the scope of today's video is going to be as such. We're going to be assuming that there's a medium-low level of skill from the player. So that means you can be from starting the game to having not won a game, or even having won a few games but not too many variations of games. So like, just if you've got like maybe like 3 melee wins only, where you only train the 4 or 5 skills through the entire game, like that's fine. That's like within this barrier. If you're above that, I need your help, because you're going to be helping me figure out where I went wrong. Because I may have to, re-upload these videos a couple more times in different-ish scenarios, just to, like, kind of flesh it out a bit better. Like I said, the Demise Newbie Corner tends to be pretty long-winded because I have to try to get everything out. But if you can point out flaws in the comments, please do, so that at least I can fix it for new videos. So yeah, generally today we'll be talking about developing your early to mid-game decisions in terms of building a character, so progressing your character forward. And we're fleshing out the idea using the framework of building blocks. So it's effectively like literally building blocks. You're putting them all together to create a nice character. So what does building a character really mean? Well, it's mostly just a way to make your character progress in a way that makes the game easiest for you. And you usually do this by controlling the way that your character gains experience in certain points. So if you press the M button, you're going to bring up the skills menu. You should definitely turn off auto training, because that's terrible. Straight switch to manual adjustment. And in general, it just means playing around with the idea of opportunity cost. So in economics, opportunity cost, well, I actually have a full video on it. You can go check it out in the other in one of the Demise Talks crawl playlists. Just look up opportunity cost on my channel. It'll work. And basically it's just saying, all right, if I get A, I can't do B. Right? If I put all my money into A, I can't put all my money into B. And that's in like economic terms. But in here, we're talking about experience. If I allot all my experience into, say for example, unarmed combat, well, then I can't really put all my skills into fire magic because I've got them all into unarmed combat. That's basically it. Progressing your character and making them build is effectively just a way of saying, okay, let's do things that improve our character with the least amount of opportunity cost, right? It's literally that idea. And usually, for those of you guys that are not really familiar with the channel, or you haven't really watched any of my playthroughs, you usually train about 1 to 4 things at a time, and generally more than that, and you're kind of gathering EXP at a too slow rate. There are people who actually do that, but there are also people who do 1, 2, 3, 4. I do 4 personally. I think that it's a pretty happy medium between everything else. I can train 4 things at once. I just have like a nice split, and 40% of my EXP goes into one of the things, so I just focus one. Usually that's how I do it. But generally speaking, building a character at the beginning levels just means picking the strongest choice, or the one that suits the thing that you want to do. And I'm saying this because I'm not railroading in this case new players into a really strong build, like a Minotaur Berserker. Because what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to give you the tools that you need to tackle the game the way you want to tackle it. So for newer players, in general, the difficulty comes from knowing what the strong choice is. And that's actually why I say Minotaur Berserker is really good, and that's why we always do that for maximizing your wins. Again, this is not exactly a maximizing your wins type of video. It's more about like just playing the game properly. But yeah, I do recommend Minotaur Berserker a lot because it's a very pre-built character. All the strongest choices are already made for you. Trog gives you the strongest weapon you can get. He gives you like a heavy weapon of anti-magic, and that's great. You get heavy armor eventually, and that's pretty straightforward, right? Whereas with other characters, you do get distracted with side paths that seem good, but they're not actually good. You know, like stuff like Airstrike, Yara's Violent Unraveling, like just awful spells, or like spells that are just like worthless in terms of opportunity cost. They just cost insane amounts for like such little benefit when there are other better alternatives. So it's very easy to get distracted like that. And this is even possible in melee builds. You see people that go like, oh, I'm picking a melee weapon. Oh, I'll switch to another melee weapon. Oh, I see a flail that's really high enchanted. So I'm going to go into Maze and Flails and I'm going to keep that on for like 2 runes and then my character sucks. I'm not sure why. It's because you see these side paths and you're like, ooh, I'll go into that. Ooh, I'll go into that. And then it makes your game really difficult because you're just moving your character back and forth between all these little things. And bleeding EXP the entire way through. So generally, building your character just means putting as much EXP into the best things possible, and then that's how the character comes out. Your character at the end should look pretty streamlined and delicious and amazing. And if I watch your morgue, I'll be like, ah, yes, my son, you have learned. Great. So we're going to talk first by talking about the universal building blocks, which I like to imagine as the things that every character is going to get at some point. So the main big one is fighting. Fighting is super freaking important. It gives HP, and I believe it gives melee accuracy, but I don't give a shit about that. It's mostly the HP. Hit points are freaking insane. Like, they're broken. You know what I mean? If your hit points hit 0, fun fact, you die. You can't win. You've lost. It's the deciding factor between whether you win or whether you lose. So, generally speaking, every character wants fighting. And as much of it as they can get without burning, like, all their other things, right? So generally, every single guy wants fighting. For melees, generally it's the first thing you max, if possible. For mages, it's very high up in the list. It's oftentimes actually your highest skill. Excuse me. For like any character I can think of, fighting is just critical. It's just necessary. So no matter what character you're playing, fighting will be important. Do not fall into the idea of fantasy tropes where your mages don't build fighting because they're supposed to be glass cannons. No. Dungeon Crawl ain't like that. In Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, you're muscle wizards, man. Wizards with muscles. Because your fucking wizards always have 20 plus fighting in every single game. But apart from that, other universal building block is armor and dodging. These two are basically just your quote-unquote defense, even though fighting is also a defense. And every character has some level of armor or dodging. You really don't ever not train any of that, because it's pretty good. You can also put shields in, but it's not as universal, because obviously shields bar you from using two-handed weapons. They make it so that it's harder to cast spells until you get to the right point, and blah, 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 blah. Basically, shields is like an auxiliary defense, but armor and dodging is your general defense. And depending on what kind of character you are, so I've just put the 3 down below, 3 basic archetypes, you'll have a little bit different stuff. So robe characters would probably have about 0, maybe 2 armor, and like a bunch of dodge. So like, I don't know, but maybe at the end of the game, like 18 to 20. Like, these are very light numbers. You can go above and below by like a ton, it's fine, doesn't matter. I'm just saying like roughly, very roughly. So robe characters might involve something like, I don't know, a mage. Robe characters are not that common these days now that Swamp Dragon armor and stuff are like kind of in the game. It's like, you wouldn't really do that. I mean, they've always been in the game, but you know what I mean. Like the meta's kind of shifted away from the idea of picking a robe character. But Deep Elf, like, certain mages will definitely do that. Robe characters also might include stuff like octopodes and feelids who can't actually learn armor. But yeah, that's beside the point. So light melee, so light armored melee, so like stabbers, hybrids kind of. They'll usually have about equal armor and dodge, or higher dodge, like usually mostly higher dodge, and as much armor-ish as you can get, like without being... I'm thinking about like a Spriggan Enchanter, for example, with like, say, Swamp Dragon armor. You might want to have like 12, 15 armor, and then like 20 dodge, because it's just the way that your character's built. And heavy armor characters, you know, just your classic Minotaurs, your classic Trolls, whatever you can get. They'll usually have like more armor than dodge. So let's say, I don't know, at the end of the game you might have like 22 armor and like 18 dodge. It's like, who gives a shit? It's not, the numbers don't matter. What I'm just trying to say is like, there's a ratio between armor and dodging, and based on what kind of character you are, you'll intuitively understand that light characters want more dodge and heavy characters want more armor. Like, it's pretty straightforward, because That's how the skills actually work. But apart from your universal building blocks, there are also general building blocks. Now, these are not universal, but they are based on what character you're playing. So, every single character needs a way to kill stuff, yeah? So, fighter types would want some kind of weapon to Mindalay. It could be a arbalist, it could be, an axe, could be a polearm, blah, 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 blah. And obviously, if you're running a one-handed weapon, it's it's quite intuitive for you to pick up a shield. Characters like ogres and trolls who are really big and get and I believe nagas as well, and formicids. The ones that are really big actually get they have to train less shields, so they go from 15 to 9. You only need 9 shields to get rid of a regular shield penalties for holding them. So it's quite good to get those, but generally speaking, it's just weapon skill to Mindalay, and if you're holding a one-handed weapon, you get a shield to Mindalay. Blah, easy, right? So yeah, not very difficult. Unarmed combat types, you just get unarmed combat as high as you can afford. Unlike every other weapon skill, for some reason, unarmed combat's just I don't have a Mindalay. You can get me to 27 if you want, and I'll still be as fast as fuck. I believe it, so it hits Mindalay at quote-unquote 27, but it's not really Mindalay. You might want to pick up transmutations if you're a spellcaster, like my Baisu Zen run, but whatever, right? As long as you get the way to kill stuff, that's your unarmed combat. Stabbers are a bit more complicated. You get stealth, hexes, short blades, all that cool shit to get your stabbing on. Check out the guide to stabbers to look at that more. Mage types, look, your main two, let's be real, your main 2 combat skills are going to be either conjurations or summoning. So you're going to either kill someone by conjuring shit to blow them up, or you're going to summon shit to blow them up. Sounds very similar, but... And unlike in D&D, for some reason, I realized that conjuration is actually summoning in D&D, which is odd. But yeah, you're either going to blast them to death, or you're going to summon stuff to kill them, right? And then you'll train other skills based on what spells you have. For example, a fire mage is going to go conjuration and fire, blah, 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 blah. But that's what I'm trying to say. Just your general building blocks, right? Other building blocks would be invocations, so depending on your god, invocations is important, or it's just not important, depends on which god you're picking. For example, I've just listed 4 over there: Elivlon, Macleb, Nemelex, and Quazzle. They're fairly high invocations gods. So Ellie, you go as high as you can go. Macleb, you go 15, 12. Nemelex, you go as high as you go. Quazzle, you go as high as you go. But effectively, they all provide you some extra power for building invocations. So some of them are really good for invo. Other gods like Aquara, maybe Hep, they're fairly low investment. You kind of put just 8 to 10 if you want, just to get your abilities down, spell failure or ability failure down. And finally, generally, a character can have evocations on the side. It's more of a luxury skill rather than a necessary one. It's not you can't really use evocations as a way to kill stuff most of the time, because, well, they made it so that evocables aren't rechargeable anymore, and Nemelex is no longer an evocations god, so there's no real way to do evocations. Oh, and they also removed Pekela, so rest in peace that guy. But yeah, you really don't need to train evocations. A lot of people on Reddit and stuff will be like, oh, you must train 8 to 12. I'm like, I don't remember doing that, and I've played a lot of games, man. Evocations is really good at 0, but you can train it up to 8 if you want. It's really not necessary, so if you do have a way to kill stuff already, and you're still trying to get stuff to work, for example invocations, don't worry about evocations. But if you have nothing else to train yet, maybe chuck it in. You can also try throwing. Throwing I didn't mention here, but it's kind of not worth the time anymore after they changed the way throwing works, so it's more based on Mindalays and stuff. Don't worry about it. Most of the time throwing is just unless you want to be a thrower, but then that's not really cool anyway. So once you've talked about your building blocks, you're gonna put the last headstone piece, which is your god choice. So you generally want to pick a god that makes sense for the character, right? So there's a couple of categories they can fall into. So either they're really just generally strong gods, and I haven't really put these in terms of order of preference or anything. I just listed some examples. So Macleb, Ashanzari, and Nemelex are really good, just all-round gods. Whatever you want to do, they're good at helping you. Macleb's just going to give you health, he's going to give you summons, whatever. Ashanzari is just going to make everything good and give you vision. And Nemelex is just going to give you cards and let you play Hearthstone inside Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. So those are just gods that work for every character. It doesn't matter really what you're picking. You can pick them. Obviously, you wouldn't pick a mage with Nemlex, kind of fiddly, but like it'll work regardless, just because like the gods don't really have anything to do with your playstyle. So the second category are the kind of gods that make you really good at what you want to do. So for example, like Trog, Vehemot, Sif, and Dithmenos. So Dithmenos for stealth, Trog for melee, Vehemot, Sif for mages. Obviously Okawara as well, but he fits into like 2 or 3 god choices here, so don't want to include him. But yeah, these guys are really good for keeping your god, like yourself, I guess, focused in terms of what you want to do. So Vehemot, a conjurer wants to go Vehemot because it gives you range and access to conjurations and also mana regen on kill. It's just a nice thing to have, right? A melee character has no business picking Vehemot, but a mage character almost always wants to go Vehemot. If they don't want to go Vehemot, they're probably a summoner and they want to go Sif, because that's mana regen up the wang. That's a lot of mana regen. And especially because you can go into negative mana, which is pretty damn good. Or they can finally complement you, as in they can complement your playstyle by providing you an alternative. So, for example, the best example of this probably is stabbers. Hexes generally aren't great past like the 3rd rune. So in, like, for example, Zot, they're quite poor. And even in even in your 3rd rune and depths, they kind of get a little bit weaker. Stabbers tend to be. So Kiku, for example, gives you a necromantic option. So you can get the pain weapon up, you can get a bunch of undead, simulacrum, animate dead, blah blah blah, and let you steamroll through Zot like that. Gozag just lets you bribe the shit out of Zot and it just cleans it up for you for free. It's absolutely broken, you should try it sometime. But yeah, these are gods that just give you an alternative to the things you're already doing. Mages can also go Kiku. Mages can pick up Kiku, like necromancy spells on top of magic spells. Just, it's perfectly fine. It's great. Just a complement to whatever you're doing. For general survivability, a good strategy is for you to pick the first strong god that's good for your character and at the moment you see it. So if you see a D2 Okawara, it doesn't matter if you're going to go Trog, just go Okawara. It's good enough. It's where all the fed-ass D2 memes come from. Fed-ass is fine. He's generally he's a generalist character, or she's a generalist god. I don't like her because she's outdated and boring and frustrating, and often falls off a cliff in terms of scaling, save for like Zod, and also she makes you enjoy starvation the entire game. Alright, I'm not going to talk too much about Fedass, but basically you can pick Fedass, and she will get you to places as long as you're like it's worth picking her early on because you can get the piety quicker, and then you can just keep going through the game. And then you're going to regret the rest of your game. But that's fine. But like for the first little bit, if you want to survive the early game, then you just pick the first strong god. And that helps you build your character without really having to think too much about it. Obviously, that's not supposed to say lair. That's supposed to say temple. So I'm going to go ahead and just... Ooh. Isn't this professional? Look at that. Ooh, that was professional. Didn't see that one coming, did you? Yeah, if you want a specific, like, god, I say combo piece, but I mean, like, part of your character race, like race background god combo. You can wait until temple or lair if you want to do Jivia to make your decision. So yeah, we'll talk about pre-temple character building just like in the first early bits of the game, just so I can get you guys started and thinking about how you do it. The general idea behind it is you want to have your kill dudes option be trained, and what that means is whatever the hell you were using in over here, this way to kill stuff, you want to be training that immediately. That's kind of a focus for you in the beginning of the game, just because you want to be able to kill stuff real quick. If you're melee, you want to get fighting, maybe a bit of armor, just a little smidge later on. And for mages and stabbers, fighting needs to be trained, but you don't have to do it at the beginning because most of your entire early game is just avoiding stuff fighting. You're just trying to kill stuff from as far fucking away as you can. Just like, don't look at me, don't touch me, I can't afford to tank you, no. So, for those guys, yeah, fuck fighting. You don't need it that much. You will want to get it by the time you're finished with Temple, usually, or Lair. But by the time you enter Lair, you kind of want to start training fighting. But for those guys where spell failure is a thing, you kind of need to get your other stuff up more importantly. Armor and dodging are not that high priority early game, but unless you have like a super high aptitude character, like a Feelid, a Merfolk, or, an Octopode or whatever, Or you're a character that's like busted, like a Minotaur fighter or a Gargoyle Gladiator. Sure, go ahead, dump the XP and it's fine. It improves your character. Maybe not as much as if you just did fighting and weapon skills, but it still improves them, and your character's really good anyway. It doesn't matter. And as a little bit of a hot tip, stealth is really valuable on certain weak mages in the early game. My biggest one that I always pick stealth on is Naga and Octopode. Those two are fucking awful in the early game. So stealth is really great at avoiding a lot of combat, because you can just reset fights over and over again. It's like getting a free stair pull every so often, but you don't ever have to like leave the floor. You just run away. It's pretty good. So once you're at Temple, you've kind of like got your kill dudes option kind of getting up. Maybe training some fighting, maybe training one more thing if you feel a little frisky. But you've picked your god now. You're going to continue to train that offense and fighting, and you're going to start to see some more options to build your character. You're going to start to see like more crazy shit on the floor. Maybe you found an artifact. Maybe you found like some kind of good armor, good weapon. I just want you to ask yourself, generally, like I said, when you're thinking, how does it help with my character's progression? Does it make my life easier, or am I getting a side grade? How much opportunity cost does the decision incur? So what I'm saying is, say for example, you're playing as an... say for example, you find on your Minotaur Berserker a longsword, artifact longsword, +6 slice, RF plus, R-poise plus, strength +2, right? That's a good weapon. That's a very good weapon. That's not a bad weapon at all. But you're a hand axe lad. It looks tempting to see your hand axe in your hand, and then to see that longsword and be like, I'm a longsword boy now. But unfortunately for you, you've already trained like 12 in axes, and there's no cross training to get you across that bridge from going from axes to long blades. So don't switch. You know what I mean? It's a side grade. By the time you get past, by the time you get through all that transitionary phase, you've actually just side graded your character, and you've made them significantly worse, because now they don't have as much HP, or now they don't have as much armor, or now they don't have as much invocations, whatever, right? Generally speaking, even though that sword is really good, it's not worth it, because you're eventually going to get a good weapon from somewhere of your type, but also because it's really costing you a shitload of opportunity, right? It's costing you a lot of other defenses. It's getting rid of those universal building blocks that I was talking about earlier. And if you're doing a classic build, specifically, so for example, like Troll Monk, Brigand Enchanter, Centaur Hunter, Mummy Summoner, like Minotaur Fighter, Gargoyle Gladiator, Hillock Berserker, whatever the hell you want, right? If you're doing a classic build that's tried and tested, just stick to the damn game plan. It's faster, it's easier, and you won't have to worry so much about, like, oh, do I have to make this decision, this optimization, that optimization, blah, 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 blah. You don't have to worry about that. Just stick to the game plan. If you're a troll and you find an artifact weapon, you know what you're going to do? I didn't see that artifact weapon. That's right, because my claws are the best artifacts in the game. They're fucking +3 slay fists or something like that? I don't know. They're really good. Like, that's what I'm saying. They're really good. For mages, this is the biggest fucking issue, and this is kind of where the character building comes in concept. If you're worried about, like, if you're looking at all these brand new spanking spells, and you're seeing all these new ones for the first time, just think about it like this. Are my character slots covered? Are my bases covered with this character already? So, for example, if I'm a fire elementalist, and I find, I don't know, throw icicle, do I have any alternative to that is like kind of the same as throw icicle? No? Okay, maybe I'll consider picking it up. I don't have any like amazing way of dealing with stuff with medium-ish damage from long-ish range, right? Oh wait, I have fireball. That's right, true. I have fireball. It's probably the same thing. Oh, I found bolt of fire and bolt of cold. I'm not going to pick both up. I'll just pick up bolt of fire because, it's a good option, and it's already on my bolt of fire line. It's easy peasy. Probably not the best example, but whatever. Generally speaking, just don't train anything. Someone's like, oh, I trained for Yara's Violent Unraveling, and that's like kind of what like triggered this whole thought process. But it was like, that spell's fucking terrible. Why do you have that spell? Like, it doesn't make any sense for you to get that spell. But I didn't get the actual reasoning behind getting that spell, but all I was thinking was, God damn, this guy has a lot of spell schools, man. A lot of spell schools are being trained right now, and not all of them are really that necessary. You probably only need to put your eggs into like 2 or 3 baskets as a mage. You don't need to put all your eggs into like 55 baskets all over the place. It's just not worth your time most of the time, right? Anyway, so post-temple character building is just refining your character, making it so that they're kind of just improving their offense and fighting, and starting to train a bit of defense post that option. And then above and beyond, again, ask yourself what you need, right? Your character always wants a way to kill stuff, and once they've got their way to kill stuff, they want to be able to survive long enough to kill stuff, right? So some characters might need another way of dealing with enemies. So for example, mages, you want like maybe 3 or 4 spells at least. So you're not just using one spell. For example, you can use Bolt of Fire for most of your fights, but maybe you need something that hits enemies that are fire resistant. For example, Orb of Destruction is really good for doing that. Wink, it's really good. No, it's really insanely good. Stabbers, you'll need some kind of non-hex way of killing enemies. So that means like summoning or, a god ability or something. And for melee, you just need a heavy weapon. You don't need anything else. You really don't need to. But yeah, like, your character, as they develop beyond that post-layer point where you started picking up those defenses and whatnot, you're starting to, like, get some stuff. You're looking for ways to kill stuff. You're looking for ways to defend yourself long enough to kill stuff. And then maybe after that, you'd be like, okay, am I struggling with certain things because my current way of killing stuff is insufficient? If yes, then maybe you need another way to kill enemies. But yeah, your universal building blocks should continue to be trained throughout the game, and mages can and will be getting a lot of fighting. And what that means is, looking down below, these are some of the results from the 0.20 tournament, where you see here that these guys are clearly mages. This is taken from players within the top 5 of the 0.20 tournament, I believe. So there's just a couple of them. And they have all got slaying or warrior. One's got ninja, but like, you know what I mean. These guys all have trained a lot of fighting. So Slayer is a title where you have, I think, 22 plus fighting. And these are all street games, I believe. So, they're pretty good examples of people who like to win. And yeah, even though they're all mages, they all end up picking up some kind of slaying option. The Spriggan Transmuter of Nemlex, I don't know why that's there. I think I may have accidentally picked the wrong one. But it's kind of cool anyway. That's Yomak's game, I believe. Spriggan Transmuter of Nemlex is a very interesting strategy. Very cool. But yeah, like generally speaking, my main point that I want to bring up is, alright, your character needs a shitload of fighting. They need a way to kill an enemy, and then they need defense. They do not need 5 ways to kill enemies. You don't need 5 weapons. They don't need 50 ways to kill an enemy. So like with a mage, you don't need like 6 different ways to AoE someone. You can just AoE twice or once, right? You only need 1 or 2 spells for that. And you don't need to be training for random shit you find on the dungeon. Not all the time. Think about opportunity cost. It's more important. Building a character generally takes a little bit of restraint and a little bit of, I guess, what's the word? I've forgotten now. Temperaments? Yeah, temperaments might be it. I don't know. You need to have restraint. You do need to have a bit of restraint. You need to focus on what your character wants to do. And this is not just for like winning your first game characters. I'm talking about like any character. This is like even referencing meme builds, like the ones that I do. Like you need to think about what your plan is in the game, and you need to think about how you're going to achieve that plan. And usually that refers to just getting a shitload of defense, getting one way of killing stuff, and then finishing the game like that. It's very nice. So thanks for watching. I just put some memes here. I'm not actually sure if half of these are memes. I just picked them. Like, I had my computer just like, neural network a couple of memes out for me. So, here's a couple. I don't know if these are any... Are these actually memes? I don't think the bottom right one is a meme. But anyway, I think that this video could do with a little bit more work. So I might have to revisit this topic. But I have already spent like 2.5 hours on this fucking thing. So I'm not going to redo it. Not going to re-record it again, because I've already re-recorded it once. But I believe I will have to come back to this video. I'll have to expand more into this universe. I might go even deeper into, like, specifically, I think, the Temple to Lair area. Because I find that to be a lot of, the place where a lot of character decisions are made. But yeah, generally, I'm not sure if my point came across well. Let me know if you guys need another go at it, because I really do want to know if this one worked out, because I'm not really sure. Yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll probably be doing this again soon, most likely.